This is Nothing But Net Aussie Hoops presented by Amy. Kane Pitman alongside the Olympian Ryan Broekhoff. And there was no shortage of drama last week across the NBL. And once again, it seemed to centre around your old team, the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix.
Yeah, plenty of news around the Phoenix, but maybe the least talked about news is that they got a win. They broke through and they won a Throwdown, which is awesome for them.
They did, and if there was one win they could have picked, that was probably the one they would have taken, Rowdy, so it's a fair point from you. But speaking of Olympians, Andrew Bogut will join the show a little bit later on. Movements are just starting to happen towards the next Boomers head coach. Bogs will give his thoughts on which direction Basketball Australia should probably take. But round 5 of the NBL was an absolute roller coaster, and to get the leading headlines, we bring in our man, as we always do, Olgun Uluc from ESPN.com.au, and it's fair to say he's been busy over the last few days, and unfortunately there has been injury updates to star players. Let's start with that team, Southeast Melbourne Phoenix and Derek Walton Jr. and his dodgy hammy. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Kane, this is a grade 1 strain of that hamstring. He suffered that really early in the Throwdown. It wasn't too bad for the Phoenix. They still ended up getting that win. They got that traditional, we just fired our coach, so we're going to play harder this game sort of win. They got Owen Foxwell and Angus Glover. These guys stepped up, but this isn't just an injury that's going to keep Derek Walton out for 3 weeks. This is a unique part of the schedule for the Phoenix where they have 3 straight doubles. And so this isn't just 3 games he'll miss. This is 6 games he'll miss. And so you're missing your starting point guard, your high money import point guard for 3 weeks, for 6 games. That's damn near 20% of the season. This is a real tough blow for the Phoenix. And I'm curious, Ryan, if you think that Owen Foxwell, Angus Glover, Ben Ayre, these guys stepped up in that Throwdown. Can they do that consistently over the next few games?
Well, they're going to have to, and between the trio of them, find a way to cover those minutes. But I also think it falls on Sobey. He looked more comfortable with the ball in his hand with Walton out during the Throwdown. So maybe a lot falls on him to be more aggressive offensively, have more of a role with the ball in his hand, a little bit more creation. But between those guys, they're going to have to figure out something because it's a huge loss.
Yeah, and Derek Walton Jr. to this point in time, his stats haven't been where we expect. This is an all-NBL first-team guard, so maybe a few weeks he can come back and get to his best. But you want to talk about stars, we can't go any higher than Bryce Cotton there. Multiple-time MVP, the 7-time scoring champ. Olgs, this was a really innocuous incident early in the game against New Zealand.
Yeah, and there was good news and bad news from it. Bryce Cotton immediately went to the hospital. The x-rays were negative, so he was cleared of a broken or cracked rib, but there was still a lot of pain, and that's where the bad news was. It was what is causing this pain, and from what we understand now, is he suffered a rib cartilage fracture and a displaced rib. And so this is the thing that's causing Bryce Cotton a ton of pain. The expectation is that he'll be out indefinitely. I'm expecting this to be at least a few weeks of Bryce Cotton on the sidelines. And I spoke to some people last night, and I was wondering, with the NBA season starting up now, a lot of players being waived ahead of the regular season. There are a lot of guys in waivers that are really talented. Would the Wildcats go and pick up one of those guys for a few weeks? I'm told they won't. I'm told that they're going to ride with Todd Withers. He's their nominated replacement player. He'll come into the active roster for Bryce Cotton, and they're going to put a lot more pressure on Elijah Pepper, Ben Henschel, Ty Webster, Dylan Windler to provide that perimeter output.
Yeah, Dylan Windler and Keanu Pinder as well. I do think they're looking for the star power replacement, right? This is a 2-4 Wildcats team.
Yeah, I don't know how you exactly replace Bryce, but those guys definitely need to step up, especially Pinder. He started off the season so well. His form's kind of waned, his minutes are kind of waned, but it's time for him to step up. And I guess we get to see a chance finally to see John Rillie and his coaching prowess. How does he adjust now with that best player in the league?
They gave him the contract extension, Olgs, and I would say John Riley's going to be earning his cash now. This is a tough situation for this Wildcats team to be in. We always appreciate your time. Not your brightest update we've seen so far this season, but we appreciate it, Olgs.
Thanks, guys. I'll bring some good news next week.
We always appreciate the work from Olgun Uluc. Go to ESPN.com.au to check it all out. And when we look at the NBL ladder, Rowdy, I can't help but look at position 8 and position 9. Perth, we just spoke about 2-4, but Tasmania 2-5. 2 teams are in the postseason last year, so plenty going on with the NBL ladder. Hey, no doubt. A little bit of a flat start emotionally to this show with all those star player injury updates. So let's turn things around with some highlights. Here are the top plays of round 5, presented by Hungry Jacks. The burgers are better at Hungry Jacks.
Operating inside. Outside now to Davis. One to shoot. Got it off. Got it down. Lewis. The top of the key. Locker Hunter. Nice. He threw it up and Hunter went and found it.
This'll get you up and about. Gag with a two-hand stuff on throwing.
Magnay affected the shot. Carroll came up with it. Oh, no! Magnay says absolutely not.
I think this is an immediate beat up, but it made news in Australia. Kyrie Irving to the Australian national team pro. It was big news over here. I think Kyrie was asked by an Australian journalist and said, yeah, he'd love to entertain the idea and would definitely put his hand up. I think the Team USA thing, doors closed for him. I think with all the stuff that he's been through the last 4 or 5 years, I think they kind of wanted to stray away from Kyrie, and I think he probably knows that. I don't think it's even possible. I don't think FIBA would allow it. I think they'll do everything in their power not to allow it, even though he was born here and only lived here until he was 6 or 7 months old. But just an interesting one that came up, bro. I mean, the separate question is, I'd love it. Like for our national team to get a bona fide scorer that can give you buckets, that is a guy you don't have to run anything for, is a guy you can throw the ball to with the last 3 minutes of the game, something we've never really had, like all-star level, done. So if we can do it, sign me up.
Nothing but net. Aussie Hoops presented by Amy continues. Kane Pitman, Ryan Broekhoff, and the host of the Rogue Bogues podcast. We just heard the audio, Andrew Bogut, and we had to get you on, Bogues. It's great to chat to you. The Kyrie Irving situation is fascinating. We just heard some of your ideas there, and you just touched on it at the end, but I am curious. A 36-year-old Kyrie Irving, yes, the Boomers need a bucket getter, but with all these young guards, what do you see in terms of the development for the program, and do you even worry about that? Just some more thoughts on potentially Kyrie with the Boomers.
Yeah, he's definitely up there, and that's the thing. It's probably a one campaign stint, maybe World Cup into Olympics. But I would, if it's doable, I'd do it. I mean, he's a talent that we haven't had with the national team. He's a bona fide all-star that can, your offense sputters, you just throw him the ball and he's going to create something. But having it happen and will it happen are two different things. I just don't think FIBA, the Embiid example someone brought up, well, Embiid showed, but he never played a game, I don't think, at a senior level for either team. Kyrie's played for Team USA, and I just don't see FIBA doing it. Now, if he was going to a country of his roots that was a third world, they'd probably allow it more, which we've seen a lot with the South Sudan, a lot of different teams, because these are up-and-coming nations, but I just don't think this will be allowed anyway.
It is an interesting situation, guys, with the Boomers and where they're at now. We know they're going to, again, be looking through for a new head coach. I asked Ryan about this a couple of weeks ago, Bogues, but we understand that Basketball Australia are going to be taking applicants and looking at doing interviews here over the next couple of months. Do you lean in any particular direction when it comes to who could be at the front of the line?
Well, you got the Asia Cup games are coming up relatively soon, so I assume that's just going to be a Band-Aid coach for the time being. Process hasn't started yet, as far as I know. I would do the widest net possible. I think there's pros and cons in every category. I think you've got the NBA category, you've got the NBL category, and you've got FIBA/international. They all come with pros and cons. NBA, obviously, working with NBA guys know the day-to-day, but I feel like NBA coaches struggle the first campaign or two in a FIBA tournament. It takes a while to adjust to the play and how it goes. NBL coaches know the Boomers culture, know the Australian guys. Maybe can they demand that respect from the NBA guys? And then you've got a FIBA/Europe guy who's flying blind to what the Boomers culture is about, but genius is X's and O wise and adjustments wise. So they all have pros and cons, and it's just a matter of where BA goes. But starting the process, I would open it up to anyone and everyone all over the world. Give us your entries, and then we probably cut it down to about 10, somewhere around there, and then go through your formal interview process.
Yeah, I think that's the conversation, Rowdy, what Bogues just said there, and you guys are the perfect ones to talk to. You've been in it, and this is most likely going to be a complete new direction, depending on what Patty Mills does, even though I guess he hasn't made any official announcements. But it's a new core. It's a young core. Most of them are going to be in the NBA. It's a different situation to the past. Have you changed your thoughts at all in terms of someone that needs to have the local knowledge, or just the best coach you can find?
It's a tough one, and as Bogues sort of said, there's so many things to consider. A changing of the guard as such. Obviously, Giddey now, I guess, has the keys to the program and this young wave of talent that's coming through. What are they looking for? Do they have an input into what the coach search looks like. You know, do they want someone more tailored to the NBA, which they're used to? Obviously, the Boomers culture is one thing that you don't want to get lost in the shuffle. So, as Bogut said, a wide net makes sense, and then start to whittle these down and maybe get some input from previous players as to how it all fits together.
You've ruled yourself out, Bogut. No applications coming in for head coaching?
No, I would never walk into a head coaching job. I need some assistant experience first. But look, the FIBA one's interesting because it's never been done. So that's definitely an interesting one, whether they get a candidate from the international game that's never, you know, the Boomers have always either been American influenced or Australian, right? So, and then obviously you have the two assistants in Capehorn and Nielsen, who I assume will be putting their hand up as well from the previous regime. So there's a lot of good names out there, and I think, you know, Basketball Australia, the Boomers, the program's in a really good spot where I think you're going to have a lot of. I think you'll be surprised. There'll be some big name coaches, I think, putting their hand up, seeing the amount of talent on this roster.
Yeah, and we've seen elsewhere, you know, whether it is, you know, even Canada with a Jordi Fernandez, and, you know, Nick Nurse was in the mix there as well. So it'll be curious with so many guys around the league which direction they go. If we stay with head coaches, I want to come to you first, and you can send it to Bogues. The Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, this was fascinating as an outsider, how quickly you can bring in Josh King. Obviously, the Phoenix started 0-5. They did get that win with Sammy McKinnon. What have you made of this? This has been an interesting pathway, the way this has all happened.
Yeah, and I think the biggest question is just how quickly it all happened after the firing. So, you know, there's a lot of process that I feel like would go into it, and Bogues, obviously you can speak to it in a second, being an owner, but just how quickly the transition, how quickly they made the decision. Obviously a relative unknown to us in Australia and overseas here in the States, but, you know, to bring someone in from, you know, the FIBA system, previously coached in Turkey, to go through that whole process in a short amount of time, it feels like they would have at least started this process a lot earlier. But Bogues, you're obviously a part on. You've been through some of these coaching searches with the Sydney Kings. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, we've been through 4 or 5 in the last, 6 or 7 years. So we've sat through a lot of interviews over the last couple of years with that. It's a tough process. You have to start pre-planning really early, but Southeast Melbourne are obviously in a different situation. If we're being honest, I think, King has been on their shortlist for a while. I think they've probably started conversations uncomfortably before a couple of days ago. For being honest, I highly doubt they called him and had him hired within 2 days, like you're alluding to, Rowdy. So it is interesting. It is tough. I mean, Sam McKinnon, undefeated, gets put back on the assistant plan. But by all reports, he's a defense first guy. We hear that a lot. It'd be interesting to see if it is that way. And unfortunately for Kelly, he just couldn't get that group to respond and off to a poor start. And yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see how they build from here.
So you have had to go through a few different coaches. What are the characteristics that potentially you look for the NBL? It is a different league. And we have seen sometimes the international coaches come in and they haven't been able to quite figure it out quick enough. And this is even harder. You don't even have a preseason.
Yeah, we've been on both spectrums of that. Obviously Mood didn't do as well as he would have liked or he liked, and then Chase was out of this world, won 2 championships. So we've seen both sides of it. It's, there is a bit of a science to it. We try to prod them with some questions, have 2 or 3 rounds of that, really go after them, put them under pressure at times in the interview process. Obviously there's a key with us to development. We have some younger guys on the squad. What kind of style of game are you playing? And then a lot of it, to be honest with you, is done with our contacts. So we do the interview process, but then it's calling people where these candidates have worked. And between myself, Luke, Pongrass, we have a lot of connections throughout the world, and we can find out what they're like on the day-to-day. How did they respond to pressure? What were they like in a losing streak? What were they like in a winning streak? What are they like communicating with the guys? And then you get a lot of honest answers that way, and that helps you really kind of steer in the direction of a certain candidate.
At least this year, he probably had a fair idea what Brian Goorjian has done across the course of his career. Yeah. Hey, if we stick to that throwdown, and we'll stick with the Phoenix as well. So it was heated. We expected that was going to be the case, and there was an incident between one of your former guys, Geordie Hunter, and Chris Golding, and Chris Golding perhaps wasn't happy with the way they were tied up. And one of the owners of the Phoenix, Romy Chartery, he tweeted about Golding's flopping in the past, in his opinion, and said that type of incident was weak. What did you make of this from an owner? Because you are in that position, and we do. I think the Sydney Kings, they like to throw their opinions out there from time to time.
I mean, I don't mind it. it's up to him. If he wants to do that, he's got to deal with the ramifications and people going back at him. I like Dean clapping back. I mean, it creates a genuine rivalry. You always have to look at someone's, whether the tweet is inappropriate or not, you need to look at the facts. And I love CG, and CG, one of my friends, was at a wedding with him, at Jock's wedding not too long ago. We always have fun, but he flops a lot. Like it is what it is. So there's some truth to the tweet. You can't be mad at that. He does flop a lot, and I renamed that series the flop down from the throwdown, because it was hard on the eye. It was a very hard on the eye game to watch, even though it was intense. It was not good viewing. Hey,
Rowdy, so you've been in those throwdowns. It has to be challenging, and use whatever word you want to use, but it has to be challenging. You know, I'll use the polite word of Chris Golding is crafty. What are you looking at when you're guarding that guy? Because he's done it for such a long time in this league and been so successful scoring and, yes, drawing the whistle.
You just got to be careful. I mean, you got to stay away from his feet. He likes to kick out his legs. Similar to Bryce Cotton, Bryce jumps forward and exaggerates a little bit more. But these type of shooters, you just can't go near their feet. Stay vertical. Let them get into their shot. And with Chris, it's either going to be make or miss. As a defender, we're not really going to have too much of an effect on the toughness of his shots. We've seen it for years, what he's able to produce, whether it's off the bounce, coming off screens, looking from half court. He's one of those shooters that you just kind of hope that he misses and just don't give him the bailout by giving him the foul. But it's I'm glad you said it, Bogus, because I don't know if I had the merit to say that with all the flopping, but you know, it's a part of his game that's evolved. And look, if he's able to get some calls out of it, advantage Chris Goulding.
Yeah, that's it. Melbourne United fans like it, Bogues. Hey, before we let you go, just quickly, you did tweet a few weeks ago. People were commenting. You had to single it on, and you're looking like you're in great shape. And you said a 10-day contract might be down the line. No, can you ruled out a head coach of the Boomers? Can you rule out a comeback?
Yeah, no, I can rule out a comeback. I can rule that definitely out. I'm happy with being able to wake up and walk to the bathroom without any clicks and knocks and all that kind of stuff. And I've been enjoying being able to play with my kids. That was the main reason why I retired. I'd come home from training sometimes, and when my kids were really young, couldn't even go to the park and push them on a swing. And I was like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this daily. So body's feeling great. Still in the gym 3-4 times a week, and in the sunshine as well. So it helps.
Hey, we appreciate the insight, Andrew Bogut. Check out the Rogue Bogues podcast. Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
Hey, we've still got plenty more to come on Nothing But Net Aussie Hoops presented by Amy. We're going to look at some of the Aussies in the NBA, and this guy might be on the docket.
Hi, I'm Josh Giddey with the Chicago Bulls.
Arabia drives, ball knocked away. Giddey's got it for the Bulls. Bounce to Levine, look out for those. Stuffs it in.
And you're watching Nothing But Net Aussie Hoops. I want to try, make everyone around me better. As a point guard, that's kind of my role on the team, and just to make guys' life easy. I want to bring obviously a winning brand here and play hard, do what I have to do to help our team win games. So we've got a lot of talent on this team, a lot of guys that can do a lot of things, which is a big luxury to have. So whatever my role is on any given night, I'm willing to do, but most importantly, just help this team win as many games as we can.
Josh Giddey speaking in new colours, a Chicago Bull this season. This is Nothing But Net Aussie Hoops presented by Amy, Kane Pitman and Ryan Broekhoff here. First of all, Media Day activities. How did you like it back in Dallas? One of your more looked forward to days?
It wasn't too bad. I didn't have too many duties. I kind of had a few little spots that I had to do, took my photos and I got out of there. But some of the guys are there all day. So lucky to be a bit of an unknown.
You can't get away with it anymore. They sent our producer Ben to Chicago to get Giddey. So even if we didn't have bodies, they were sending anyone over there. There's so many Aussies across the league. Let's talk about Josh Giddey though. And let's keep it big picture. So he does go to a new home. There are so many guards on this roster and a little bit of a setback last year for Josh just in terms of his position on that Oklahoma City Thunder team. What is a successful season for Josh?
I think it's just being able to flourish and get back to what his game is all about, controlling the rock, being able to facilitate, play up tempo, get other guys involved. That's his biggest strength as a player. The shooting, I think, he shouldn't have too many reservations or anything about getting shots up. This is a team that probably not many expecting to make a big splash this year. So playing with freedom, getting back to running a team, playing up tempo and building upon what his first couple of years in the league look like.
Yeah, so we know what he can do running an offense, and people will talk to the three-point shot. The only thing that I would point to, and you're the resident shooter, so I just stick to the stats. You tell us what you see. But as a rookie, 26.3%, and went up to 32.6. Last year, 33.7. So gradually making the improvements. He's only 22 years old.
Yeah, that's the thing I think a lot of us forget is how young he is. 22 still, has been in the league multiple years, and that progression, it still will continue. He still has lots of time to work and develop that shot, but at least you're seeing the improvement year to year, and the mechanics are slightly changing. They're getting a little bit more fluid, but for him, it's just about getting confidence in it. A lot of shooting is just confidence, putting in the reps and the practice, and seeing the results finally come on the court.
Yeah, and I do think with all those guards in that Chicago roster, trying to lock down that starting spot will not only be good for Josh to flourish, but remember, he is looking for that big deal at the end of the season, which does bring me to transition to Ben Simmons now, and you talk about someone that already had that big deal. So, Ben Simmons signed this 5-year, $177 million contract extension back in July 2019. He was the age that Josh will be at the end of this season. What is success for Ben Simmons? Because he's now in the unique position where this is a contract year. He is going to be a free agent and 29 or near on 29.
I don't think another big contract's probably coming after this, but for him, it's just to get confidence back in himself, get through a season. Injuries obviously have plagued him over the last few years, and confidence in his own game, but just getting him back on the court, seeing the dynamic athlete, hopefully he still has that in him with all the injuries that have taken its toll, but it's playing freely. He's similar to Josh. He's great with vision, playing in the open court. But for him, just getting run on the court.
Yeah, so 115 out of a possible 318 games from the first 4 years of that contract. There was some COVID stuff in there. But you spoke about the physicality. So to me, this is what it is all about, because we've seen him play a few games, just a handful at the start of last season, but he wasn't seeking out that contact. He wasn't trying to get to the free throw line. That is Ben Simmons at his best. Now, the question is whether that is a confidence thing or whether he's physically able to do it. But if he can't get to that dominant force, he won't get back to the level he was at. Is it that simple?
It is. He's rare. 6'10", point guard, handle, extremely athletic, runs the floor like a gazelle. If he has lost some of that, there's still ways he can contribute, but it definitely won't be the same player that he was just a few seasons ago.
Yeah, so we go back to that last All-Star season in Philadelphia. He was getting over 5 free-throw attempts per game. The last 2 seasons, just over 1. So that's just a small indication, and it is just the numbers. But Ben Simmons hasn't been what we have seen, certainly at the early portion of his career. I mentioned some of the games that he has missed, and these are the games played over the past few seasons. You can see just the 57 over the last 3. So overall, maybe a successful season for Ben is just getting out on the court. We'd love to see it. Now, we do know what the NBA brings to the table, the best of the best, the highest level of basketball in the world, and yet, even the best, very occasionally, they'll slip up. This is when Hoops turn to Oops, presented by Amy.
Kuzma with the fake out, misses the three.
Bruh.
Christie up ahead for Reeves all the way. Can't stop. Oh, look at LeBron. Look at LeBron. Just kind of stood there. Okay.
A flat-footed offensive rebound and putback.
Okay, nobody around me.
2-on-1. Look at that. Morant with the hustle. My last.
Look at this Morant.
The hustle is incredible. Look at the takeoff. I'm hanging. I'm waiting. Larson doesn't know what to do. So I shoot it underneath. I don't know where to go.
Nothing but net Aussie Hoops presented by Amy, getting you ready for all of this over the next few days. And I'm looking ahead to Saturday night, Rowdy, and Brisbane and Tasmania. Tasmania on the back foot. All of a sudden, Brisbane have won 2 in a row. And we finish it all off with Melbourne United at home at John Cain Arena against the Cairns Taipans. And I want to stick with Melbourne United as we get into them a little bit and what they look like. So I don't think there would be any panic stations, but there's no question it was a bad loss against the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, and it looked to me like the Phoenix were able to get under their skin, which is not what you expect.
No, especially from a veteran team like United, who have the culture set, the standards set. It was very unlike them and disappointing for them against the Phoenix, especially in such a pivotal game, a throwdown. So It doesn't get any easier. Illawarra at Illawarra coming up on Thursday, and then the Bogey team, the team that they seem to struggle with, the Cairns Taipans. So doesn't get any easier any game here in the NBL.
And injuries, unfortunately, they seem like they've been a theme for this show. And we spoke about Bryce Cotton and Derek Walton Jr., Taron Armstrong not going to be a part of that game. And also, when you look at the loss to Southeast Melbourne, the importance for Shea Ili for this team is just, it's unbelievable. He's somehow still underrated, arguably the best defender in the league.
Arguably, yeah. I've been on the receiving end of a Shea Ili lockdown, so he's so important to this team, and stats don't always do it justice, but his energy is infectious. Defensively, he gets the toughest assignments, and he's kind of the engine that makes it go. He gets other guys involved. Everyone walks a little bit taller with him, and to know that you've got Shea Ili guarding your back is always good.
And there has been talk about Chris Golding, obviously with the headlines through the week. You don't want to annoy that man. There might be a bounce back coming this weekend for Melbourne, 2 games across the week.
Yeah, you poke the bear. We know what he can do in such a short amount of time during the game, so expect a big one, plenty of threes to go up, and a big weekend for United.
Yeah, it's going to be a great weekend of hoops altogether, and whether it's the NBL or it's the NBA, you know the place to watch it on ESPN, your home for hoops. For Kane Pitman, Ryan Broekhoff, Olgun Uluc, and of course, Andrew Bogut. That's going to do it for us. We look forward to seeing you same time next week.